You think the problem is the job, the hours, the commute, the Sunday night dread that starts right before the weekend is even over. You've changed the job before. The dread came back after a few months. That's the tell. Move the furniture and the room is still broken. Because the problem was never the furniture. Today, we look at what's actually happening when Monday feels like a sentence and Friday feels like parole. 3 separate mechanisms working on you at once. None of them is your job title. The Sunday dread. Here's what nobody tells you about that specific Sunday evening heaviness. Take a week off. Nothing due on Monday, nothing on your calendar. And the heaviness shows up anyway, right on schedule, the second the noise of the week stops. That's the detail that breaks the narrative of it being just your job. In 1946, psychiatrist Viktor Frankl gave it a name: neogenic neurosis. Distress rooted in a starved sense of purpose, with no medical or childhood cause behind it. He even had a term for the version that arrives on a weekly clock: Sunday neurosis. The specific hour you're left alone with the question of whether any of this amounts to anything. Frankl called the underlying state an existential vacuum, a specific, measurable absence, the sense that nothing you're doing is actually good for anything. And the 9 to 5 is a machine built to disguise that vacuum, not to fill it. It runs on deadlines, quarterly targets, performance reviews, busy work, standing in front of the answer it was actually built to withhold what any of this is for. So you fill your calendar, meetings, side projects, a second screen running while the first one is already full. You pick up a side hustle or you scroll until your eyes give out because motion of any kind is quieter than the vacuum underneath it. You're turning up the volume on something else so you can't hear the actual question. The vacuum is still sitting there at 6 on Sunday, the second you stop moving long enough to notice it. That's the symptom. Now, let's take a look at the mechanism underneath it. The waiting room. Here's a question. Is this your actual life, or the version you're living until your real life starts? Answer this honestly for yourself, because most people get it wrong on the first pass. Nobody's actually made them say it out loud before. Carl Jung spent decades treating patients who lived what he called a provisional life, because he kept seeing the same pattern in front of him: a job, a city, a relationship, all of it held at arm's length and filed under for now, waiting on a future where the real version finally arrives. The job is temporary, the apartment is temporary, the relationship is fine for now. Every part of the sentence carries the same asterisk. The actual life starts later, once conditions improved, once the timing's right, once you've saved enough, once the promotion comes through. Jung's finding was blunt. Later is a debt that never comes due on its own. The provisional life doesn't resolve itself. It stays provisional until you're the one who refuses to wait any longer. And your unconscious knows exactly what's happening, which is why it stays irritated, restless, present at 6 on Sunday. Same as the vacuum. Same withheld consent, 2 different names for it. And the 9 to 5 cage is the perfect home for this pattern, because it runs entirely on postponement. Wait for the raise, wait for the promotion, wait for retirement 30 years out, to the point on the horizon where you're promised the provision finally becomes real. Notice how the promise resets the moment you reach it. The junior role was provisional. The promotion will fix it. The promotion was provisional. The next title will fix it. 10 years in, the title changed 4 times and the sentence stayed exactly the same. That resetting promise is what the system optimized for compliant, unfinished employees looks like. Cheaper to manage, slower to leave. Nobody has to conspire for this pattern to keep repeating. It's just working. So here is the actual diagnostic. And it isn't, do you like your job? Ask this instead. If nothing about your circumstances changed for the next, say, 10 years, same job, same apartment, same everything, would you call that a life or a waiting room? If your honest answer is waiting room, you now know what you've been actually postponing, and it never was that promotion, the blocked self. So why not just decide to stop waiting? Say the word now and mean it, because deciding was never the bottleneck. Becoming a specific, differentiated person instead of a stack of roles performing competence for other people isn't a decision you make once. It runs on conditions, not just on willpower, on friction, on reflection, on time that belongs to nobody but you. Jung had a name for this. He called it individuation. It's the larger project the provisional life sits inside. A calendar with no white space has none of that. It only has output. And this is what actually makes you feel stuck. It's not a discipline problem. It's an access problem. 8, 9, 10 hours a day are already spoken for by a role, built and priced by somebody else. And whatever is left goes to recovering just enough to do it all over again tomorrow. Whoever you were supposed to keep becoming stalls out. There's nothing left over to build it with. So you're told to find your passion on the weekend, as if this was a good advice. It's actually a schedule engineered to consume all of you and leaves back the leftovers. And let's be honest, 2 days is a maintenance window. It's not how you build a person, because inside that maintenance window, here's what actually gets asked of you. It's never who you are, but always what you can deliver. The deliverable-ready version of your opinion, phrased for a stakeholder update, is the one that gets a seat at the table. The narrowing happens in the language itself, long before you even notice it. Human resources, tracked and allocated the same way you track server capacity or office supplies. Same mechanism as before. No one sat down and actually planned this. It's much simpler than a conspiracy, and so much worse. A finished self doesn't perform for stakeholder value. It walks straight past it, asking questions the job, the role was never built to survive. A system just runs cheaper and quieter on people who are still becoming rather than already being. Nobody had to design that. It always worked that way, so it keeps happening. And here's what you can do about all of this. Both the vacuum and the waiting room come from the same place. Life and meaning, postponed in favor of your job. The same later that never arrives, over and over. 3 questions. Write them down or find them in the description. Answer them for yourself as honestly as you can. First, the vacuum. Name 1 hour this week that was entirely, unaccountably yours. If you come up empty, you've got your answer about where your Sunday dread is coming from. Second, the waiting room. Finish this sentence honestly. My real life starts once blank. Fill in the blank and then ask what that sentence is actually doing for you if you keep leaving it unfinished. 3, the blocked self. Name 1 thing you used to think, make, or care about before the job started narrating you. Then put 1 hour on the calendar for it this week, not someday. This week. This isn't about finding a hobby. It's about giving individuation the hours it was never given. So here's what this was actually about. The Sunday dread, the sense that your real life hasn't started, the feeling that you can't get traction on becoming who you're actually supposed to be. 3 angles on 1 condition. A life running entirely on somebody else's term, with nothing left over for the part of you that was supposed to keep growing. The 9 to 5 didn't take your time by force. It took it because you kept signing over the hours, 1 later at a time, to a promise built to keep resetting, not resolving. This is the part you can act on immediately. Those hours. Claim those hours that belong to nobody but your own becoming. No permission, no explanation, no excuses. Free will is an act of rebellion.